Should you be bidding on your brand terms? It's a question we get all the time, and many different people in the paid media industry have all different sorts of opinions on it. Now, there's not really a clear consensus, and that's mostly because there's not an answer that fits everybody. It's a real case-by-case basis. Recently, I was lucky enough to have a client that was willing to run a brand exclusion test and decide if they should be bidding on their brand terms. So I thought it was worth a share. So in this video, I want to walk through what the debate is around running brand paid search campaigns in your account, talk about the test that we ran, the results we saw, the strategies that impacted it, and then hopefully you'll have a little bit of an idea of how this test might work for you should you decide to do it. Should I bid on my brand keywords? This is a question we get all the time. We've heard it over the course of our careers in all sorts of different ways. And depending on who you ask in the industry, you're going to get a different answer. If you ask us, we're going to give you the answer that everybody loves, which is it depends. Everybody's scenario is different, and there's always going to be a different set of circumstances that might influence if you should or shouldn't bid on your brand keywords. Now, there are two different camps. People who say that yes, you should bid on your branded terms, and there are people that say no, you should not bid on your brand terms. For the people who say yes, you should bid on your branded keywords, they've usually got the same types of reasons. First, they want you to own the space that your brand term occupies. They don't want anybody else being there, and that's how you prevent the competitor creep or just competitors buying your name. Whenever somebody searches for your brand name, you want to be the one that shows up. So if you have high competition in that space, it's a good idea to bid on your brand terms if you want to make sure you're still the first listing that shows up, because any other competitor that bids on your terms, that ad will likely show above your organic listing and will push that result down so that you're not the first name that somebody sees. Additionally, brand terms tend to be pretty strong performing keywords, so they make the performance overall of an account or a portfolio of campaigns look a bit better. Now on the flip side, people who say no, you should not bid on your brand terms, put the onus for those conversions on organic. They say that organic should pick up the traffic that you're paying for with your paid search keywords. They think that spending that money is unnecessary and it gives a false positive on strong performance. So effectively, the biggest case for no is that your organic should already be doing that. You shouldn't need to. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, every scenario is different. This video is going to be us running through our experience with one client in one market for one industry. This does not mean that your results will be the same, but I do want to walk through what our experience was with a brand exclusion test and talk about how things went. So overall, for the course of the year, for the first 5 months, we were seeing pretty consistent conversion volume, started to get a little bit more finicky in kind of the April range. And week-to-week conversion totals, as you can see in the blue line in the top chart and as the red line in the bottom chart, sorry, I didn't make those the same color, got a little less consistent week over week. But we also saw decreasing cost per conversion, which is the red line in the top chart, and we saw decreasing cost, which was the blue line in the bottom chart. So we were spending less, our cost per conversion went down, conversions stayed relatively stable, even if week to week the numbers were a little goofy, but overall we were getting way more efficient than we had been at the beginning of the year, and we're looking to try and impact the business as a whole in the most impactful way. One of the ways we were doing this is having a lot of money go into some long-term Performance Max campaigns that had been set up prior to our taking over the campaigns. And when we dug a little bit deeper into the insights and where you can find the search term insights of these campaigns, that so many of these keywords were branded terms that were driving conversions. So although we had brand search campaigns in place alongside our Performance Max, PMax was basically taking a ton of volume and converting it because they were branded terms. Effectively, 95% of the Performance Max conversions we were seeing in the account that were driving that strong performance were from branded terms. They were not generating new customers. They were not finding new people. They were just capturing the bottom of funnel searches and making the campaigns look overly good. So we wanted to set some expectations around running a brand exclusion test. So over the course of the first 5 months, the first table up here, you can see the monthly performance for the Performance Max campaigns all combined. And then in the tables down below, the top portion where it says brand is 95% of the stats in the top table, and non-brand is only 5%. because that is effectively what was left over as a non-brand conversion. So when you're looking at this, in January, the campaign spent $35,000, generated 1,600 conversions, but as you can see in the table below, about 33,000 of that and 1,500 conversions were from branded terms. Only about $1,700 and 80 conversions came from non-branded phrases. So we put together some higher level stats and looked at the account as a whole and tried to show effectively what we thought could be an outcome of this test. Now you can look at the month-to-month stats up above for brand and non-brand, which the brand portion includes branded search and those stats from the Performance Max brand share of voice. And the non-brand down below is the combination of our non-branded search plus the 5% non-branded performance from Performance Max. Now, all of those stats effectively feed down into the monthly averages down below, and this was kind of the biggest takeaway we wanted to see. Cost per conversion for brand terms is around $13, $14, whereas non-brand closer to $32, $33. We needed to pull these stats so that we would know when we ran the exclusion test, the cost per conversion was going to go up probably by about 140% compared to where we had been. So after a lot of discussions and talking about what's best for the business, we got buy-in from the client that we could do this brand exclusion test. And to do that, we basically needed to have the complete removal of brand from our paid media campaigns. Now, while this is a really big shift in strategy, it doesn't take a lot to actually execute this change. All we needed to do was turn off the branded search campaigns, add negative keywords to the Performance Max campaigns for any branded phrases so that we wouldn't show up for any brand terms, and then let the campaigns run for a week without making really any other adjustments, just to make sure that there weren't any other variables in the mix. So in the middle of June, we ran this test. We ran it from June 15th through the 22nd. We let the data simmer, percolate for a few days after that before finally getting to our last set of stats. And here's what we saw. These are the two tables that show sessions, or basically visits to the site, on the top chart, and down below is going to be our conversion event, or the submit the form event. So overall, sessions went down by about 3% week over week. You can see that paid search and cross-network, which cross-network is the source that is from Performance Max, went down by 48 and 50% respectively. Organic search went up by 26, and that's how we ended up with about 3% change. Now, the part that was astonishing to me, if I'm quite honest, is that the conversion action down at the bottom, paid search and cross-network lost about 413 to 423 conversions for the week. Those are down 67 and 71%, but organic search picked up 44% compared to its baseline and increased conversions by 823. That total down at the bottom where it says negative 16, we only lost 16 submissions week over week by turning off brand. That's less than 0.5%. So in the end, we absolutely considered this test a win, and it's heavily impacted our strategy moving forward. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all of this is dependent on so many factors that were in place for this company, for this brand, for this industry. Here's why our test worked. The organic strategy was excellent. We worked on this test in combination with an SEO agency. They had already done their work over the previous months to make sure that this client had rock solid SEO for all of their brand terms. And we knew that we weren't getting outranked for any of these terms, and we really owned the results page for any branded search. Additionally, there's not real threat from competition here. We would see in Auction Insights that we had maybe 10%, 15% competition encroaching on these brand terms, but those were pretty fleeting, and they didn't really stick around for very long once they did start bidding on our terms. Last, and I find this to be more important than people give it credit for, is that we have good brand recognition and a unique name in the space. Now, while a strategy back in the day used to be to try and make your domain or your brand name almost synonymous with a non-brand search, in this type of scenario, that gets to be really, really difficult. Here's a scenario that might make sense for those of you out there. Aflac is, one, not really a word, but you probably recognize it as an insurance company. It's a very unique word that has nothing to do with insurance, but you knew exactly what it was. Now, on the flip side, there's a website called cars.com. But if people are searching for cars, you're probably still going to end up showing up because Cars is the brand name. So in this scenario, we were more in the Aflac range. We had a unique brand name that did not directly correlate to a non-branded search. The combination of these three things was why our test worked out well, but just because the test worked doesn't mean we're done doing the work. So what we're doing moving forward, even though we don't have much competition on our brand terms, we are retaining a very small brand search budget simply to be able to pay attention to auction insights for these branded terms. In Google Ads, if you do not have a campaign running, you cannot see the auction insights for them. So for us to know if competitors are starting to creep in on our brand terms with ads, we need to retain a small budget in all of the locations that are valuable to us. So we do have about 6% of the budget overall going to brand search just to keep an eye on competitor trends. We retained all of the branded negatives in Performance Max campaigns, so they are now truly just awareness and new client driving. And lastly, we reallocated all of the rest of the brand search and overage Performance Max budget into non-brand campaigns and launching any new awareness coverage. Effectively, the way we're seeing it, we just saved a ton of money from branded search, and we know with confidence, backed up by data, that organic will pick up that volume for us. So we have an extremely solid organic bottom of the funnel for our brand terms. So now it's in the business's best interest for us to go after net new users, generate more awareness, work on nurturing them, and let organic branded search make the conversion, and effectively expect that our paid media campaigns are going to have a higher cost per conversion, but that the business overall is going to be in a better position because we reallocated that brand search budget. Now, as I've said a few times, this is just one business in one time span, one portion of the country in one industry. Just like any other test, your results may be different, but this is the first time in my experience I've ever actually seen organic pick up almost 100% of the traction, and that just seemed really cool and worth sharing with everybody. So if you have any additional questions about running branded search campaigns, running a brand search exclusion test, anything else kind of in this brand strategy realm, we'd love to talk about it with you, so let us know your questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching our video. We really appreciate it. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up below. If you really liked it, maybe think about subscribing to the Paid Media Pros YouTube channel and you'll get alerted every time a new video drops.
If you really liked it, you can help support the channel by checking out some of the t-shirts that we're wearing on our merch shelf, as well as looking at the Super Thanks button.